So I always appreciate everyone taking the time to comment and to support the channel. And I want to read a special comment with you guys. Here it is. Chris Darlin is a complete clown. He has posted on seafood festivals and on Family Feuds. He is a grifter, and with a small following, he is ignorant, untalented, and obviously a paid shill. Ask yourself, what is all the negative crap from him all about? What does he gain from it? He is a paid shill. Additionally, his on-screen demeanor and appearance is all you need to observe. This little geek has probably never held a job requiring any labor, never played sports in school, never served in the military, and has never visited a gym. He is a joke and deserves none of your time. And so, hard to keep a straight face, but this is the kind of stuff that you deal with when you do things on YouTube or anything in life these days online, is people literally just make stuff up. They just make stuff up. And it's something I wanted to share with you guys. I don't think you realize how bad it is. Literally, just now, there was a couple more comments of similar kind of things. One person was saying, Chris, you're too young to know anything. You're too wet behind the ears. Another person was saying, again, stuff like, hey, Chris, you're too stupid. You've probably never owned a car. You don't know anything about cars. And it's kind of funny. A lot of these kind of people, they're upset that their Tesla stock is going down. That's what this stuff is often about. And part of what happens is, unfortunately, is that when people can't win an argument, they resort to name calling, this kind of thing. And even moreover, just start making stuff up. The other thing that's awful as well, and this is a real thing, and it's up to you which one you think is worse. Is it worse that people just make stuff up, or is it worse that people basically spread lies, but they're too dumb to actually know the difference between the truth and the lies? And I don't know. I mean, it's a questionable thing, and I'm sharing this with you because I used to think, this in the past, I used to think that people were actually reasonably intelligent and just were purposely lying. But as I've come to find out, and this is just unfortunately the truth, some people really can't tell the difference between truth and lies. And this is sort of why I've realized, whenever I do, say, like an exposed scammer video, this sort of thing, why this type of stuff is important. I'll give you a simple example. So recently, again, and I mentioned it before, but I'll just mention it briefly again. There's a Meet Kevin dude. He's on YouTube, and basically he bought a jet, and he keeps making video after video after video, justifying why it's good to buy a really expensive jet. And I can tell you, it's not a good idea to buy a private jet right now or anytime. Mostly, it's funny because, this guy is obviously a scammer. He sells classes. He wears these basically salesman kind of suits. He talks like it's just obvious. But when I say that, in fact, it's not obvious because there are people out there who essentially lose all of their money because of people like Kevin. It's a real shame. You could talk about crypto, people pumping Dogecoin, all of these kind of things, right? And when Dogecoin is like going up to the moon and Elon Musk is tweeting out, oh, Dogecoin is awesome, Dogecoin is awesome. Like for me, it's obviously stupid and it's obviously a joke. Like to me, it's obvious. And I asked my friends about, hey, how much Dogecoin you buying? And like we all laugh because like we know it's obviously a scam, right? But unfortunately, there's people that don't see that it's obviously a scam. And it reminds me again why I have to make these kind of videos. One of the things that you may or may not know, and this is something that's important, and I didn't realize it till, about 3 months ago, I would post videos about Larry Jones, and you can find my videos if you haven't seen it, and I won't tell you which one exactly, but you can find them. What I mean by that is that there's a comment on one of them, and it was like, oh, Chris, you're just a liar. Larry Jones is a smart guy, and you're just making stuff up, etc. And oftentimes I check the profiles of some of these things, and this particular one, it was a kid. And I mean, it was like a 12-year-old kid, like really obviously a 12-year-old kid that had a bunch of videos on there from the same 12-year-old kid basically doing selfie kind of stuff. And this is also a real thing on YouTube is that, you're not really supposed to expose children or anything like that. I'm sure you understand this sort of thing. But the reason why I mention this is that when you read through YouTube comments, you actually have no idea the age of people. You don't know. And this is something that is also, too, when you put out content on the internet, on YouTube or otherwise, when you become, a certain level of following, you really have a social responsibility to tell the truth, to be honest, and also to give people good advice. These are my opinions. I don't think it's crazy stuff to say, especially given the times that we live in. Just past over the summer where there's all those YouTubers that were essentially pumping cryptos, FTX and these sort of thing, and basically all their fans are going to lose everything or already have. It's a real thing. And unfortunately, people don't think about the responsibility that they have. Now, someone, sort of why this thing is coming up also, Someone wrote a comment saying, Chris, you should stop using the phrase conspiracy theory. It's just making people angry, these kind of things. And I want to address this particularly because I think this is actually an extremely important issue. So do thank you for bringing this up. So first is, I'm still going to use the phrase conspiracy theory because, to be perfectly frank, there are people out there, unfortunately, that just spread stuff that's untrue, that spread conspiracy theories, okay? The argument is of why I should not use a phrase like conspiracy theory is because essentially it belittles another person's point of view, it belittles another person's argument, and the basic idea is that there's too much division already, and so why should I add more to it? I do understand that argument, right? But guys, I really get it. And so that's why I try my best in this channel when we go through news topics or go through any sort of controversial issue, which I purposely choose, to give an honest answer and also to present facts. I try my best. And I also am open to people saying, hey, Chris, I disagree. I'm fine with that. The problem is we are in a society at the moment where, unfortunately, people just make stuff up. They spread said stuff on places like Reddit. I'm sure you guys know about Reddit. It's a horrible place in terms of people making stuff up. But this is a real situation, and it's also becomes more difficult for people to navigate what the truth is and what the truth is not. Someone just wrote a comment, and something I hadn't really thought of in this way. They were saying, if someone watches Fox News, they believe in a certain way, and they're essentially kind of looking for not just for their team to win, but sort of how to feel about the world. And if don't like Fox News, maybe watch another outlet, for example, say CNN, and then you want to see your point of view on events, on sort of reconfirming of what you think you should do in your life because you see the world a certain kind of way. When babies are forming essentially their cognitive skills and understanding how the world works, and I'm talking about infants, right? There was an interesting experiment where they would show people, babies essentially, pictures of cat, and it'd be like cat, right? Just keep showing a picture of a cat. And eventually the baby just, quits looking at the cat because it's not interesting anymore. They already know what a cat is. What happens is, what's really fascinating is that, then you show it a dog, and the baby's like, oh, it's a dog, it's a dog. And you'll kind of flip it back and forth between cat and dog, cat and dog, cat and dog. And the point of this test is to see, how long it takes for a child or an infant to recognize the difference between cat and dog. This is, and I'm illustrating this for you because I'm just saying people do study sort of how people perceive the world. So early on, infants start categorizing things into categories that make sense to them, right? So early on, they figure out the difference between a cat and a dog. And at some point in their life, they're probably going to see a bear at the zoo or something like that, right? Until someone has said experience, they have no idea what a bear is. Okay? Or you could say bear market, for example. And if you've only ever seen a bull market in your life, you have no idea what a bear market is. And this would be any number of things. Until you've had said experience, you don't know what it is. So another example, we're talking about infants and children. And the reason why I'm talking about this is not to say all of you are infants and children. It's to say that this is sort of how humans think. This is how humans work. They put things in their mouth all the time, right? When the baby, is often like, say, just puts their own foot in their mouth because they don't know what it tastes like because they've never tasted a foot. or anytime you give a kid anything, like be it Legos, be it glue, be it paper, any number of things, they put it in their mouth right away because they want to see what that tastes like. The same way, for example, that you have to be really, really careful around with children and fire because they don't really know what fire is. I'm sure you guys get where I'm going with this, but the point that I'm trying to get you to think is like, how do people formulate their ideas about the world and sort of things, and how do people determine things when they don't have any experience with said thing, right? Do they just put it in their mouth all the time or whatever? Well, usually what they do is they try to classify it in things that they know exist, right? So if you see a bear for the first time, you're like, okay, well, it's kind of like a dog, it's kind of like a cat, it walks on, four, but then again, now it's eating stuff with his hands, right? It has to recategorize things. Now, what happens is that, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, later in life, some people never break out of having less categories, right? They still want to categorize everything in cat or dog, or they can't want to categorize everything in black or white, right? And this is, like I said, I'll try to be polite, but the lower the IQ that you go, or you can even say less experience, but just lower cognitive skills that you go, the less amount of categories that a person will have. The idea is that it is more simple for them to only keep track of a few categories, and it's more simple for them to try to make sure that the world is as simple as possible. The reality is that the world is actually really, really complex. Another example would be, think about even if you just know what a bear is, all the different types of bear that exist in the world, right? You start to confuse people who are like, well, this bear lives here, and this bear lives here, and this bear sleeps this time, and this bear sleeps at that time, and this bear doesn't sleep, right? Like this kind of stuff. Or like, this is the example of when you take this cat and that cat, and you put them together, and they have babies, and they get a new type of cat, and you're like, oh my God, I can't figure out what's going on, right? And the point is that I'm trying to get with you guys is that the world is complex, and I'm trying to help you navigate this thing without having to rely on categories that don't necessarily categorize the world that we live in. Not everything fits in cat, not everything fits in dog, not everything fits in black, not everything fits in white. And so oftentimes, this is a real thing, when young people come and they ask questions of, say I'm in the classrooms like that, and I give, them a long-winded answer, they'll be like, what? I didn't really ask that. I just wanted a simple yes or no. And this is sort of what I'm trying to get at, is that the world isn't necessarily all about simple yes and simple no. Now, with that said, the world is a complicated place. The reason why, and it's funny, I always somewhat contradict myself a bit and say the reason why I use conspiracy theory, though, is because unfortunately there's people out there that just spread things that are simply not true. And this sort of takes advantage of the people who still in the world of cat or dog, right? Not everyone who is rich is evil. Not everyone who is poor is evil. But sort of like the idea of a conspiracy theory, these sort of thing is categorizing an entire group of people one way or the other as being, bad, or these kind of things. So I hope you understand sort of why I care about these things, understand why I care about education. I also wanted just to talk about, my understanding of how people form their ideas and how people think about the world, and sort of why I do what I do and talk the way that I do. So I know this is, again, a long-winded answer, and I guess at the end of the day, just understand that not everything is cat, not everything is dog, and not everything is black or white. So I do appreciate everyone's time. Just be safe out there and understand that people do make up stuff, and I try my best to fight that. So thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.